Top 10 point guards. Let's do this. First, let's get the honorable mentions out of the way. LaMelo Ball, who came into this season a little more curious than actually knowing who he is because he just dealt with injuries. And on a bad roster, you would love your young star to be able to play enough games so that they could be able to show who they are, right? But with the small sample size that he gave us in the beginning of the season, all the way up until even towards the back end where they completely shut him down, he gave a good sample size of how much his development is trending upwards. And dare I say, this upcoming season could be literally like the breakout season that puts him into not just the top 10, but it could bring him into the conversations with players like that are in the top 5 right now. Cade Cunningham is another player that I am on the lookout for, and especially the difference between him and LaMelo Ball is he actually did give us a big enough sample size to see how good he is. Ultimately, the problem with him is the fact that he plays for the Detroit Pistons, and the Detroit Pistons suck as they have for the last damn near decade. But giving me 23, 4, and 8 on respectable efficiency while playing 62 games, which I think at this point is probably like a career high for him, I believe the stock on Cade Cunningham is actually trending upwards as well. Next up, James Harden, who I was surprised didn't make the top 10 because I actually thought he was fine this year. After dealing with the drama with Daryl Morey in the Philadelphia 76ers, James Harden comes to the Los Angeles Clippers looking for a fresh start. And although the numbers dipped yet again for another season, I actually think this was a fantastic year for James Harden, given the responsibility that he has that differs from what he used to be. Giving me 17, 5, and 9 on respectable efficiency, and then in the postseason where Kawhi Leonard goes down, James Harden being able to jump it up until 21, 7, and 9, I believe is actually commendable. Last up for the honorable mentions goes to none other than Jamal Murray. Now this one I was not surprised was out the top 10. I am in the middle when it comes to the Jamal Murray love and hate. My thought process is Jamal Murray is the creator on the perimeter to Nikola Jokic, who, although he can be able to pass and play make on any area of the court, he does not have the mobility that Jamal Murray does when healthy to be able to facilitate the offense and make it that much more dangerous, which is what we've seen for the last 2 or 3 years. But the health part makes it that much more damning for Jamal Murray because he wasn't particularly healthy this year. Only playing 59 games and giving me 21, 4, and 7. Although still impressive, it just speaks to how talented the guard area is in the league to where that's not enough to enter you into the top 10. And even furthermore, the fact that he went into the postseason and did not translate that efficiency, it makes it really hard for him to skip over some of the names I'm about to pick out. All right, let's do it. At number 10, we got none other than my Milwaukee Bucks point guard, Damian Lillard. As much as I would love to fanboy over Damian Lillard about how we got a top 10 guard on our team, and he was viewed as a top 5 point guard at that point of being traded to the Milwaukee Bucks. Coming in out of shape, playing with another star caliber player that he's never had the privilege of playing with in his career, and not necessarily playing with the personnel that can be able to make you look as dominant as you did in the prior franchise. All of that culminates into you not necessarily having that impressive of a season. And that's exactly what we saw from Damian Lillard when he comes in playing 73 games, but the efficiency just didn't feel like it was there. But then he goes into the postseason without Giannis Antetokounmpo, and much of a trend of what happened this regular season, with Giannis not being there, he just felt more comfortable having the ball in his hands the majority of the time. And that is what led to him producing arguably one of the more impressive first rounds we saw outside of Joel Embiid. He upticked his points from 24 to 31. Obviously, becoming more of a scorer resulted in his assists going down from 7 to 5. It was still all the more impressive to see him actually show flashes of the Damian Lillard that we expected when he got traded to us. I'm predicting that being able to have a full off season of him knowing what franchise he's on, no drama in his life that we know of, because honestly it's none of our damn business, getting the team strategy down because you don't have a rookie head coach to worry about. You got Doc Rivers. You got Doc Rivers. We got Doc Rivers. I predict, if anything, he just looks more comfortable running alongside Giannis, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton. Number 9, Tyrese Maxiell. Now, I'm going to take this time and I'm going to actually give kudos to my fellow brethren, Vanity Sports' own Zeno. Because Zeno warned me during the offseason, telling me that Tyrese Maxiell actually is the shot creator that they need. He just needed the opportunity, and now that James Harden is going to be out the way, it's all the more reason for him to take the reins. And that he did. In 70 games, he gave us 26, 4, and 6 on fantastic shooting. And even when Joel Embiid went down, he even took a step up in being the consistency that they so desperately needed. All the more impressive, though, is the fact that he did not run away from the opportunity of being able to be the primary scoring source of a franchise, and he actually did an acceptable job at it. And going up against a top 5 defense in the New York Knicks, having a player like OG Anunoby, having a player like Josh Hart, having even a player like Dante DiVincenzo in the passing lanes, being able to consistently just tag at him, because him and Joel Embiid were the primary scoring source of where any semblance of offense was being produced by the Philadelphia 76ers. He was still able to come out looking even more impressive than I was even expecting, giving the Philadelphia 76ers 35-7 on still respectable shooting. And this is against like some great defenders that were primarily focused on him. It may not have resulted into championships, but honestly, with the guard the caliber of Tyrese Maxiell, I don't think you should expect that of him. The only thing that is a little bit of a concern on my end is just the playmaking. I just need to see him be able to create outside of Joel Embiid being the primary source, because even for that stretch where Joel Embiid was out, you did see Tyrese Maxiell sort of be a little over-reliant on him being the primary source of scoring rather than him being the primary source of offense being ran. And so he just needs to grow more comfortable being with the ball, creating for not just himself and others. And I have no problem putting him even higher on this list. Next up, Tyrese Haliburton. Now, Tyrese is a curious case because typically when it comes to players like the names that I've named up until now, you get like a big sample size and it may fall off for a small bit, but they're able to pick it up. Tyrese Haliburton is not that case. Tyrese this season averaged 24-11 on respectable shooting, but what really made him stand out and put him on the map arguably was an 18-game stretch to start the season where we saw him give us offensive resemblance of none other than Steve Nash. This brother put up mad numbers during this stretch, finishing off this 18-game stretch, giving you 27, 4, and 12. And I was honestly impressed until he went down. Add that to the fact Pascal got added into the fold, lost off on some of their depth that made them that dynamic of a team. And it just felt like he was struggling the rest of the season and even into the postseason, where he gave you 19, 5, and 8 on, again, respectable efficiency. It just felt like he was never able to fully get his rhythm. Ja Morant. Ja Morant coming into this season was expected to come back and essentially be a little bit shaky. All do it because of the suspension he was facing. Ja Morant, after some allegations, had to take some accountability, and respect to him, he served the punishment that the league handed down to him. And by the time he returned, I have to admit, I thought that this team was already cooked. Him coming onto this team, it was not going to end well. But here he is giving you 25, 6, and 8 on a night-to-night basis with respectable shooting outside of the three-point line, which I think we've come to expect. But then he goes down with an arm injury, and to be honest with you, Memphis just never could recover. That being said, though, I do feel like this is actually who Ja Morant is, and I believe that is the case because last season in 61 games, it was pretty much the same thing. 26, 6, and 8 on respectable efficiency outside of the three-point line. My one concern with Ja is I don't think these injuries, these knick-knack injuries that have him out for an extended amount of time, I don't believe it to just be like a one-hit wonder. It's actually been a common thing throughout his career, and it's one of the main concerns with athletic point guards, especially of his kind, the Russell Westbrook, the Derrick Rose kind of athletic guards that focus primarily on finishing and getting to the rim at like a elite level, that it sort of puts their body at risk, especially when you're going into the tree so often. At number 6, Darren Fox. Now, Darren Fox, in any other list, they probably don't have him ahead of Ja Morant, but I'll explain. Like what I said about Ja Morant when it comes to him being one of the athletic guards that attacks the rim with elite pressure and reminds you a lot of Russell Westbrook and Derrick Rose, Darren Fox has similar attributes. The difference between him and Ja, though, is one, the mid-range, and also he's a better defender, respectfully. He's also just more durable. Playing 74 games while also giving you 27, 5, and 6. The playmaking gap between Ja Morant and Darren Fox isn't that big to where it garners Darren Fox's defensive superiority and diversifying his scoring output to different areas on the court. It should not weigh that. Now, I do understand this past season, Darren Fox's finishing came back down to earth. It really plummeted back down to earth. But when you're finishing at almost a historic rate, I'm sorry, I don't expect for you to be able to maintain that, especially if your name is not Luka or Giannis. I'm sorry. Next up, Trey Young. Trey Young comes into this season a little off kilter because of the situation that happened the season prior to last. And I won't lie, I was kicking him while he was down. Watching players like Tyrese Haliburton, watching players like even LaMelo Ball just virtually outplaying Trey Young, I felt as if this was the year where Trey Young him having to carry the load on the offensive end of the Atlanta Hawks, it was coming to an end. He couldn't do it much longer. And even though he only gave me 54 games, I do have to give him credit. He picked it back up, giving you 26, 3, and 11, the typical Trey Young numbers, on respectable efficiency. I will be transparent with you. I will never not antagonize him for his shot selection at the three-point line, but I understand a generational playmaker when I see one. I also understand the closest thing to Allen Iverson is here, and that's next on the list, Jaylen Brunson. Now, the Allen Iverson thing may be a little bit out there, but I don't care, because what I saw this past season when Julius Randle went down was the closest thing to Allen Iverson-esque that you will find in the modern era. Jaylen Brunson in 77 games recorded 29, 4, and 7 while posting career highs left and right. And then going into the postseason, going up against the Philadelphia 76ers with arguably the best player in the world in Joel Embiid before he went down, having Tyrese Maxiell still coming into the postseason rather fluently, and they no longer have Doc Rivers as their head coach. No. They are being coached by arguably a top 3 head coach in the league, Nick Nurse, who, trust me when I say, threw everything, including the kitchen sink, at Jaylen Brunson. And outside of a couple games of that series, Jaylen Brunson was able to be rather poised, calm, and collective while giving the scoring punch that was very much needed by the Knicks, while also being the facilitator that they so desperately needed because they didn't have that co-player that could be able to help facilitate the offense. And then translating that into the Indiana Pacers series, which I'm not going to lie to you, the Indiana Pacers defense isn't moving me. But when Jaylen Brunson is not being moved by OG Anunoby's injury, Josh Hart's abdomen injury, along with the slew of other injuries that was going on before they even entered the series, I have to assume that Jaylen Brunson at this point is just a playoff resilient scorer. He's shown me too many instances of him just being resilient no matter the defense that he goes up against, that I just have to give him the respect at this point. And with him being able to not only do it in the postseason, but this past season being able to showcase that resiliency in the regular season as well, that right there is what put him at 4th. 3rd, Stephen Curry. Now, Stephen Curry comes into this season after getting knocked out in the second round by the Lakers, but it was all the more impressive watching what Steph Curry did, specifically against the Sacramento Kings in the first round. The addition of Chris Paul, releasing Jordan Poole after the fiasco that was going on with him, and the stage was set for Stephen Curry and the Golden State Warriors to get right back on track of where they left off. The problem was the Golden State Warriors franchise could not keep Draymond Green's hands in check. I'm talking fights here, there, everywhere. He putting people in chokeholds. You would have thought he was working for the UFC. Stephen Curry started the season how Stephen Curry typically starts the season off. Fantastic shooting splits, and he was giving it to everybody. But as the season decided to become more taxing on Steph, it just grew more and more apparent that Curry just isn't the player that he once was. Defensively, you saw a significant drop-off yet again from what he even did last year. From a scoring standpoint, the efficiency just did not look as impressive as Curry typically produces. Finishing the season off with 26, 5, and 5. And I just want to make this clear. Even with me saying all of that, Stephen Curry's drop-off is from being a routine 41% three-point shooter to being a 38% shooter. So he goes from being godly to just being better than the rest of y'all. At number 2, SGA. Now, when it comes to Shai, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I've been waiting for this for a long time. Shai just last season was putting up identical numbers, but people were waiting because they needed to see him in the postseason. And for the most part, I understand the wanting to wait. But that time is over. Shai finishes this season playing 75 games, averaging 36 and 6 on not just great efficiency, but when you look at his mid-range shooting, it's damn near historical. Add that to the fact he then goes into the postseason giving you 37 and 6. And it just leaves you wondering, is there anything that's better than what Shai is producing on an isolation scoring basis? The versatility is there, the mid-range is there, the finishing is there. Defensively, he's not a negative defensively. He's actually quite great at what he does. And pair that to the fact that they just acquired Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, I'm telling you right now, I would not be surprised if Shai and the Oklahoma City Thunder go into next season as the favorites to come out of the Western Conference. And even though I do understand that what Shai is doing is so excellent, I understand that there is a point guard that just happens to be out there that's better than him. Number 1, Luka Donic, man. I can't tell you how many times I was ready to write this man off. This entire season, it was a roller coaster. I have clips of me sitting there asking if he should be a top 5 player. I have clips out there asking if defensively, is he so much of a danger to his team that he should not be regarded as the better point guard. But man, let me say right now, I was wrong. I was dead wrong. Luka is him. Playing 70 games, giving you 34, 9, and 10. My God. While also shooting 10 threes and giving you 38%. Luka just unequivocally was the best offensive player this season, and it was by like a wide margin. He then goes into the postseason and finishes off the run, giving you 29, 10, and 8. And although there were moments where defensively he looked questionable, as typically Luka does, I have to commend him. The versatility and the way he was dissecting each defense that he saw, and even on the defensive end for himself, having certain matchups like what he did in the Clippers series, leads me to believe that there is some upside in Luka Doncic actually paying attention on the defensive end. Now, whether he does it, it's neither here nor there. But at this point in time, with what Luka just provided this past season, he finishes number 1 on my top 10 rankings for point guards. I'll see you guys next week for the shooting guards. Now, I'll holler at you later. Peace.